Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about something that I didn't learn until I came to college, really. And that is what it means to be a professional fill in the blank. Okay? Being a professional, whatever it is that you're going to be a professional at, means that you get paid for it. That is as simple as it is, really. Which means that for me, in my attempts to become a professional writer, there were steps I had to take before I could actually call myself a professional writer. And once I was paid for my writing, then I became a professional writer. So, what did I do to get to that point? Here are the things I would suggest to anyone trying to become a professional writer. Step 1. Learn basic grammar. No matter what you do, if you can write well, you'll have a better chance at getting published than those who cannot write well. If an editor doesn't have to work as hard to make sure that your copy is clean and fits the style of wherever they're publishing, you'll be one of their favorite writers. Learning to write well means that you're learning to write tight. Being as concise as you can possibly be, so using the least amount of words to convey your message, and using words that people understand. So it doesn't make much sense to say use diminutive words, see I can't even pronounce it, when I could just say use small words. Does that make sense? It's one of the most basic writing tips anyone could ever give you, but it's super important. Most newspapers run copy that falls at about the 3rd or 4th grade reading level. Why? So that they don't ostracize any readers who need to keep up with what's happening in the world. Once you've learned to write well, next comes finding the market. So wherever you're going to write and whatever you're going to write, you need to make sure that you know not only what you're writing and how to write well, but how to get it published. In order to get things published, you really need to know where to find writer's guidelines, how to read them, and how to follow them. So many submissions get rejected simply because they weren't formatted according to the guidelines. Format according to the guidelines, and you'll have a much higher chance of getting published. And yes, that means that if you're submitting to a literary journal, and that literary journal doesn't want your name on the document, you don't put your name on the document. They have their reasons for that, and part of it is to avoid bias, so that if they're judging between this story and this story, they pick the story that is better and not the story that was by a friend or the story that was by this rich person. You catch my drift? Next, you want to target your submissions. Know who it is that you're trying to write for, and then make sure that you only send your submission out to the person that would accept it. This means that you're not sending nonfiction pieces that are more suited to a magazine to a literary journal, or you're not sending fiction or poetry to a place that doesn't publish fiction and poetry. So target your submissions to make sure that what you're sending out actually matches what they're publishing, and don't just send things out hoping that somebody is going to accept it. Make sure that you're doing your research along the way. Next tip along those same lines is to make sure that you aren't only submitting to the high rollers. And yes, you want to make money, so submitting to the people who will pay you for your work is a really good thing. But a lot of the people who publish and pay you for your work won't publish you unless you have already been published by others. And you need to get those bylines, and you need to get those clips, as they're called in the business. So make sure that you can get the clips from other magazines so that you can prove that other editors have thought that you were worth publishing. You can do that by submitting to the magazines that won't pay you, or to other devotionals that'll pay you like $20 per devotion, or other small articles and blogs that give you a byline and count toward a publication without necessarily paying you. Because once you've been published, and that's that. So your words are out there. Anyone can go find them. Then you just print them out and send them in, or send the PDF version along with your query when you're trying to submit to places that require clips. So start small and then move big. Next, Strategize. Be smart about where you're submitting. You probably don't want to submit the same article to 2 places at once unless both of their submission guidelines say they accept simultaneous submissions and they pay about the same and they have about the same prestige. Because if, for example, you sent something to the New Yorker and you also sent something to the Hometown magazine, and the Hometown magazine is like, yes, I really want this piece of work, but you won't hear back from the New Yorker for another 4 months, do you say yes to them because you want to be published, or do you say no and risk that New Yorker won't want it at all? Make sure that you're sending to the same caliber of magazines. Make sure that you're keeping track of who you send it to and when you'll be able to send things out again. All of this is really important. Your records are vital to your success as a freelance writer. Lastly, in any situation that you find yourself in, make sure that you have done your research. If you're publishing an article on something that you don't know much about, make sure that you really do your research so that you can become an expert in the field. You don't want to pretend to be an expert in the field. You either want to get the experts in the field or become an expert in your field. And like I said before with submitting things, you don't want to submit something to a publisher or an agent that doesn't publish or represent that type of work. So, for example, when I went to the Maranatha Writers Conference, I had a chance to sit down with one of the agents from the Steve Lobby agency. I write fiction, and I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't be wasting his time or my time. We only had 15 minutes. So, in order to make sure that I wouldn't be wasting both of our time by pitching to him, by pitching my novel to him, I Googled his name, Googled where he worked, found the About page on the website, and made sure that he represented fiction. When I found out that he didn't, I then had time to come up with 3 or 4 questions to ask him so that our time wouldn't be wasted. Doing your research will pay off in benefits you will never, ever believe, and it's really worth your time. So I hope this helps you all in your quest to become professional writers, and the trick is start small, learn the basics, and then move up from there. Once you have the basics and you have the ability to be published elsewhere, then you can move into the big leagues. And the more you get published in the big leagues, the more likely you are to succeed and make more and more money. And once you get to that point, you can make a lot of money per article. You just gotta make sure that the magazine believes you are worth their time and their money. I'll see you next week. If you have any other questions about the publishing world or anything I said in this video, leave me a comment down below and I will try to answer them in the future. Also, don't forget, I'm on Patreon now, so go find a link down there on how you can support me. It's $3 a month. That's less than a fancy cup of coffee. So I would really appreciate your help. Thanks. Bye.